The fake heiress and her sponsored scholar. The envelope sat perfectly centered on Dad's mahogany desk, crisp white against dark wood. I'd only come in to borrow his Mont Blanc pen, the good one, for signing my gallery donation check, but the letterhead caught my eye. Gene Trust Diagnostics. Confidential paternity analysis. My hand moved before my brain caught up. The report inside was dated yesterday. Impossible. Dad had been in Singapore for 3 days, wouldn't be back for 11 more. Mr. Warren must have couriered it over, probably tucked it between quarterly reports thinking Dad would want it waiting when he returned. I scanned the technical language, the charts, the careful disclaimers. Then the conclusion, typed in sterile 12-point Helvetica, alleged father Charles Bennett, Hart alleged child, Vivian Marie Hart, probability of paternity 0. 0 conclusion. The tested individuals do not share a biological parent-child relationship. The paper made a sound when it tore not a rip, but a whisper, like it was apologizing. I stared at the two halves in my hands, then at my trembling fingers, trying to understand when I'd decided to destroy it. Evidence. This is evidence. You just destroyed evidence. I found tape in Dad's drawer, the invisible kind he used for wrapping gifts, and pieced the document back together with 4 careful strips. My hands steadied as I worked. Precision was good. Precision meant control. The file went back exactly where I'd found it, the envelope flap tucked just so. Then I walked out of Charles Hart's study for what felt like the last time as his daughter. I made it to the garage before my knees gave out. Sat down hard on the concrete, still holding the pen I'd come for, and stared at the undercarriage of Mom's Mercedes. 14 days. 2 weeks until Dad came home, saw the report, and confirmed what the paper had already decided I didn't belong here. The real daughter, whoever she was, wherever she'd been raised, was probably kind. Healthy. Grateful for small mercies. Everything I'd never learned to be. Of course, they'll want her instead. I pressed my forehead to my knees and tried to remember how to breathe. I called Adrian from the car. "Where are you?" My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from underwater. Library. 4th floor. Are you? Meet me at Rousseau. Now? Rousseau was the French place near campus where we'd celebrated his scholarship renewal every semester. Private rooms, discreet staff, desserts that cost more than his weekly grocery budget. I'd always liked that about it, the excess, the quiet, the way money could buy you a space where the world stopped demanding things. I needed the world to stop demanding things. Adrian arrived 20 minutes later, still wearing his lab coat, glasses slightly fogged from the walk. He took one look at my face and sat down beside me without asking questions. "Something happened," he said. Not a question. An observation, clinical and calm. "I'm not," the words stuck. I tried again. "My family isn't my family." His hand found mine, cool and steady. "Tell me." So I did. All of it. The report, the date, the impossibility of it being a mistake. The way my first instinct had been to hide it, destroy it, pretend I'd never seen it. The certainty that once Dad knew, everything would end. "They'll send me away," I heard myself say. "They'll find the real daughter and she'll be better, and I don't know where I'll go. I don't know how to be anyone except this." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then, "How long until he's back?" 2 weeks. Then we have 2 weeks. To do what? To figure it out? He squeezed my hand once, deliberately. "You're not doing this alone." Something in my chest cracked open. I turned my face into his shoulder and let myself break. The waitress Mia, according to her name tag, checked on us every few hours with increasingly concerned expressions. She brought water I didn't drink, pastries I didn't touch, extra tissues that piled up on the table like snow. "Miss Hart?" she said carefully, Around hour 30. We're happy to keep the room as long as you need, but if there's anything we can do, she's fine, Adrian said, still holding me. His voice was gentle but firm. Just a family matter. Not family, I wanted to correct. That's the whole problem. But I didn't have the energy to explain. I cried until my throat was raw and my eyes felt like they'd been scrubbed with sandpaper. Cried until the panic bled out into numbness, and the numbness settled into something almost like acceptance. Adrian stayed. Didn't check his phone, didn't fidget, didn't offer useless platitudes. Just sat there, solid and warm, occasionally smoothing my hair back when it stuck to my wet cheeks. At some point I registered that he was humming something low and tuneless, more vibration than melody. It took me a moment to recognize it, the song I'd sung to him in the hospital 3 years ago, when he'd been recovering from the ear surgery and couldn't sleep. You remembered? I thought, and started crying again. When I finally exhausted myself into sleep, still wearing my coat, mascara smudged down to my jaw, Adrian asked Mia for a blanket. He tucked it around me with the same silent precision he used for everything, folding his lecture notes into perfect thirds, arranging his books by height and subject, lining up his shoes so the heels kissed the wall. Then he sat back down beside me, pulled out his phone, and stared at the screen for a long time. 3 unread messages from his thesis advisor. 2 from the lab coordinator. 1 from a number with a local area code that he'd never saved, never acknowledged, never answered in 4 years. He opened that one. Unknown, your father is asking for you. Adrian looked at me, tear-stained, curled into a defensive ball, even in sleep, still clutching the edge of the blanket like it might be taken away, and made a call. It's me, he said quietly. I'm coming back. Prepare the paperwork. A pause. All of it. He hung up, powered off the phone, and sat in the dim room until morning, watching me breathe. I'd been sickly as a child. Pneumonia at 4 severe enough that Mom slept in my hospital room for 6 nights, curled in the vinyl chair beside my oxygen tent. A heart murmur at 7, diagnosed during a routine checkup that became 3 specialists and a week of testing. Chronic migraines starting at 9, the kind that came with visual auras and vomiting, and 12-hour blackouts. Somewhere in those years, my parents learned a dangerous equation: Vivian's pain, parental guilt, whatever Vivian wants. I learned it too. By the time I was 12, I could engineer a migraine reel, or performed whenever I needed an out. Mom would dim the lights, Dad would cancel his meetings, and Max would be conscripted into silence and service. Get my phone charger. Take out the trash. Tell Mom I didn't break the vase. You did. Max would comply, jaw tight with resentment, because contradicting me meant risking Mom's disappointment. Can't you see your sister is suffering? He'd mutter under his breath karma, just you wait. You'll get what's coming, but he'd do it. I told myself it didn't count as cruelty if I was genuinely hurting. That the migraines were real, so the compensation was fair. That my parents' indulgence was love, not fear. I told myself a lot of things. The guilt came later, in small doses. When I was 15, I started sponsoring a rural school anonymously, through a foundation Dad recommended. Sent boxes of textbooks and winter coats and solar lamps. It felt like penance, though I couldn't articulate what I was atoning for. When I was 17, I sponsored Adrian. He'd been sitting outside the engineering library on a Tuesday afternoon, slumped against the brick wall with a duffel bag and a look of profound disconnection, like he was watching the world through frosted glass. Someone said he'd been sleeping in the building for a week. Someone else said he'd been kicked out of his apartment. I walked over and stood in front of him until he looked up. You look like you need a hot meal and a judgmental lecture about life choices, I said. I provide both. Let's go. He followed me to the dining hall without a word. Over the next 3 years, I paid his tuition, restocked his groceries, and talked at him for hours while he studied in silence. He had pale skin, sharp features, and the emotional range of a classical sculpture, but he never looked at me like I was a problem to be managed. He just existed. Calmly. Steadily. Like a fixed point in a world that kept demanding I perform. "You're my good luck charm," I told him once, sprawled on his second-hand couch while he worked through a thermodynamics problem set. "As long as I take care of you, the universe can't collect on Max's curse." Adrian turned a page. "I'm not a talisman." "You're absolutely a talisman. Don't ruin this for me." He almost smiled. His apartment became my refuge. I'd show up unannounced, shoes kicked off mid-stride, coat flung over the nearest chair, and claim the couch like it was mine. Because in a way, it was. Every soft surface, every convenience, every small comfort in that space had been calibrated to my complaints. "Adrian, this couch is like sitting on a park bench. You need to replace it." He'd pick up my discarded shoes, line them precisely in the closet, hang my coat on the hook. Never sighed. Never objected. The next week, the couch was gone. In its place, a deep cloud-soft sectional in blush pink, my favorite color, which I'd mentioned exactly once in passing 3 months prior. I'd starfished across it, laughing. "You're a saint." He kept typing, face unreadable behind his glasses. After that, changes appeared like quiet miracles. A mug shaped like a corgi because I joked that his plain white mugs were aggressively boring. Pink slippers by the door, in my exact size. A stack of cashmere throws that smelled faintly of lavender, folded on the armrest for when I inevitably fell asleep mid-rant. Meanwhile, Adrian owned 5 shirts. 3 pairs of jeans. 2 pairs of sneakers, one of which had a sole that was starting to separate. When I tried to give him money for clothes, he sent it back the same day. "Just tuition," he said. "That's the agreement." I thought it was integrity. I thought a lot of things. Then, 3 months before graduation, he tried to end it. "I can work part-time now," he said, too carefully neutral. "You've done enough." More than enough. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. No. "Vivian, absolutely not. You don't get to leave." "I'm not leaving. I'm just saying you don't have to." "I will cry," I interrupted, voice rising. "I will cry in public. I will make a scene so spectacular that campus security gets involved. Do you want that?" He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. I made good on the threat. We were on the quad mid-afternoon, full sun, at least 50 people within earshot when I grabbed his sleeve and started sobbing. Loud, ugly, theatrical sobs that turned heads from 30 feet away. "Please don't leave me," I wailed, smearing tears and snot across his shirt. "You can't leave me. I need you. You're all I have," a girl walking past muttered, toxic boyfriend, with such venom that 2 of her friends nodded in solidarity. Adrian stood frozen, mortified, while I clung to him and wailed like a Victorian widow. Finally, he sighed deep, resigned, the sound of a man accepting defeat. "Fine. I'll stay." I stopped crying instantly, threw my arms around him, and slapped his back in victory. Brothers for life. His expression went oddly flat, like I just told him his dog died. The DNA test changed everything, but slowly, like a building collapsing in reverse, each brick lifting and resettling just slightly wrong. I stopped tormenting Max. Started saying please and thank you with the careful enunciation of someone learning a new language. Went to bed at 10 without protest. Ate the vegetables Mom served without complaint. Max noticed first. He appeared in my doorway on day 3, wary and confused, like he'd discovered a bear in the living room. "Sis, you okay?" "I'm fine." "Could you close the door, please?" The please made him flinch. He backed out slowly, then bolted downstairs. "Mom," he shouted, voice cracking with panic. "Something's wrong with Vivian." I also started cleaning. Not my room. I'd always kept that pristine, a habit from childhood when I'd needed some illusion of control, but the common spaces. Baseboards. Windowsills. The grout between kitchen tiles. Mrs. Lewis, our housekeeper for 15 years, found me scrubbing the marble entryway on my hands and knees and made a sound like a startled bird. "Miss Vivian, what are you doing?" "Preparing for my future." I sat back on my heels, smiled brightly. "Do you think I could work as a housekeeper? What's the starting wage?" She stared at me, stricken, then fled to find Grace. That night, Mom came into my room. I pretended to sleep old childhood trick, perfected over years of dodging bedtime, but kept my breathing too even, too controlled. She sat on the edge of my bed. I felt the mattress dip, felt her hand hover over my forehead before finally making contact. Checking for fever. "No fever," she murmured. "So what is it?" She tucked a stuffed rabbit, ancient, one-eyed, a relic from age 6, back into my arms. Smoothed the duvet where I'd kicked it askew. "Whatever it is, sweetheart, we'll figure it out." Her voice was so gentle. So certain. You won't want to figure it out, I thought, throat tight. Not when you know. Later an hour, maybe 2, the door creaked again. Max, moving with exaggerated stealth. I kept my eyes shut, braced for retaliation. A shove. A cruel joke. Something to balance the scales for 3 years of casual tyranny. Instead, he carefully pulled my wrist out from under the blanket. My wrist had been aching since I'd scrubbed the floor's dull, hot throb that I'd ignored because it felt like penance. Max unwrapped something that crinkled softly, pressed a medicated patch against the sore tendon, smoothed it down with surprising gentleness. Then he tucked my arm back under the covers and left without a word. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and tried to imagine a world where I deserved that kindness. Came up empty. On day 10, Adrian stopped answering his phone. I called 6 times. Texted 12. Showed up at his apartment locked. His lab empty, equipment covered in dust sheets. Is less than #0, 6 hashes greater than his campus office dark. His advisor, Dr. Reeves, caught me hovering outside the thermodynamics wing looking lost. If you're looking for Adrian, he took emergency leave. My stomach dropped. Emergency? Family matter. He didn't elaborate. Doctor. Reeves frowned. Is everything all right? Fine, I lied. Thanks. I walked back to my car in a daze. Family matter. Adrian didn't have family. That was the whole point. He'd shown up on campus 4 years ago with a duffel bag and no past tense, no relatives, no emergency contacts except the University Health Center. Unless he did have family. Had always had family. And I'd been too self-absorbed to notice. The realization settled like ice water in my veins. He found out I'm broke and ran. It made perfect sense. Why stay loyal to a sponsor who couldn't sponsor anymore? I'd served my purpose, tuition, meals, connection to someone respectable, and now the transaction was complete. Smart, really. Efficient. The betrayal was a punch to the sternum. I drove to his apartment anyway, let myself in with the spare key he'd given me 2 years ago. Had that been strategy too? Maintain access? Maintain leverage? The space was exactly as I'd left it, pristine, minimal, every surface aligned. My pink slippers by the door. My ridiculous corgi mug in the drying rack. The sectional couch I'd demanded, now the most expensive thing in the room by a factor of 10. I looked around and tried to feel angry. Felt hollow instead. I curled up on the couch, my couch, the one luxury I'd bullied him into accepting, and pulled one of the cashmere throws over my shoulders. It still smelled like lavender. Like the detergent I used, because I'd complained once that his unscented brand made my skin itch. He remembered everything, I thought. Every stupid complaint. Every careless preference. And then he left anyway. I fell asleep there, holding the blanket like a lifeline. When I woke, it was late afternoon golden hour, the kind of light that makes everything look softer than it is. My face felt tight from dried tears. My throat ached. And I was covered with a different blanket. I sat up slowly, confused. The cashmere throw I'd pulled over myself was still there, but now there was a second layer, a blue waffle knit throw that had definitely been folded on the armrest when I'd arrived. I stared at it. Touched it. When did I hadn't. I'd fallen asleep on top of the covers. I was sure of it. Which meant someone had come in while I was sleeping. Seen me there. Added the second blanket without waking me? I looked around the apartment again, slower this time. The corgi mug, I'd left it in the sink 2 days ago. Now it was clean, in the drying rack. The mail on the counter yesterday's pile, which I'd glanced at and dismissed. Now sorted junk in recycling, bills in a neat stack. Fresh fruit in the bowl by the window oranges, which Adrian never bought for himself because he found them inefficient to eat. My favorite fruit. Someone had been here. Adrian had been here. While I was asleep, vulnerable, tear-stained and pathetic on his couch, he'd come back. Covered me. Straightened up. Left again without waking me. I sat there, holding the blue blanket, and tried to reconcile that care with abandonment. Couldn't. I went home in a daze. Spent 3 more days in my strange new routine, polite, obedient, helpful, until Grace finally cornered me in the kitchen. Vivian. Sit. Saturday. She studied my face for a long moment, then poured 2 cups of tea with the careful deliberation of someone preparing for battle. What happened? Nothing. Sweetheart. Her voice was gentle, unyielding. You've been scrubbing grout. You thanked Max for passing the salt. Yesterday you asked Mrs. Lewis if you could help with laundry. So I'll ask again, what happened? I opened my mouth. Closed it. If I tell her, it becomes real. But it was already real. Had been real since the moment I'd opened that envelope. I found something, I said quietly. In Dad's study. A paternity test. Grace went very still. It said my voice cracked. I tried again. It said I'm not his daughter. Not biologically. She set down her teacup with a soft clink. When? 2 weeks ago. Almost. He'll be home in 4 days and he'll see it, and I couldn't finish. Grace reached across the table and took both my hands in hers. Vivian. Look at me. I did. You are my daughter. Do you understand? Not because of blood. Not because of paperwork. Because I chose you. Every single day for 23 years, I have chosen you. But if the test, then we'll deal with it together. As a family. She squeezed my hands. But I need you to hear this. Nothing in that report changes how I feel about you. Nothing! I wanted to believe her. Tried to. But the hollow ache in my chest didn't fade. On day 14, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Vivian. Adrian's voice, rough with exhaustion. Where the hell have you been? The anger surprised me, sudden, bright, overwhelming. You just disappeared. For 2 weeks. No explanation, no, I'm back. Can you come over? Why should I? A pause. Then, quieter, please. I hung up, Drove to his apartment anyway, because apparently self-preservation wasn't my strong suit. I kicked the door open, still had the key, still had the right, and stopped dead. Adrian stood in the center of the living room wearing a charcoal Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than his rent. Hair slicked back, Patek Philippe on his wrist, posture radiating the kind of casual wealth I'd grown up swimming in. He looked like someone who could buy my family's company as a hobby. He glanced at me, then at the dull chef's knife I was holding, grabbed from my car's emergency kit, half for comedy, half for catharsis, and his expression softened a fraction. "Give me that before you hurt yourself." "Where have you been?" I brandished the knife. "You look like my father." "Handling estate business." "What estate?" "You don't," I stopped. "What happened?" "My father died." The knife lowered. "Adrian." Stroke. Massive. He was dead before the ambulance arrived. His voice was perfectly even, clinically detached. "I'm his only heir. Legally, I had to return." "You never said you had a father?" He smiled, thin and bitter. "I didn't. Not in any way that mattered." He walked past me into the bedroom. Returned with an armful of designer bags, Hermes, Chanel, Dior, and dumped them on the couch. Gold bracelets spilled across the cushions. I stared. "What is this?" "Security." "Adrian, these are." I picked up a Birkin, felt the weight of it. "This is $50,000. Minimum." 63 actually. "Where did you understanding hit like cold water?" "You went back." "To him?" "Yes." "Why?" He looked at me like the answer was obvious. "You needed security." "I needed you." "Alive." "Not." I grabbed his collar, yanked his shirt open. Bruises. Deep purple mottled with sickly yellow-green, covering his ribs and sternum. Some old enough to be fading. Some fresh. Text flickered at the edge of my vision, translucent, pale blue, drifting like smoke. Villain went back to his abusive tycoon father for her. Dad's the richest man in the city. Beats his son where clothes can hide it. Broke 4 ribs before the stroke took him. Irony. Villain went back to get money. Father died before he could refuse. Inheritance by default. 10 blows, 1 bank card per hit. Villain took all 10. Said it wasn't enough. Medical note: walked with a cane for 6 days before coming here. I blinked hard. The text stayed. "How bad?" I asked. "Manageable." "Adrian." He caught my wrists, gentle but firm. "It's done. I'm here. This is what I chose." "You chose to get beaten half to death for shopping bags? For your peace of mind." "My peace of mind?" My voice cracked. "You think I want this? You think I want bags bought with your bones?" "You were terrified," he said quietly. "Of losing everything. Of having nothing." "I couldn't." He stopped. Started again. "I needed to fix it." "By breaking yourself?" "If necessary." I shoved him back, shaking. "You don't get to decide that. You don't get to martyr yourself for me and call it fixing things. Then what do you want is less than #0. 6# is greater than I want you to ask me." The words tore out, raw. "I want you to ask what I need instead of assuming. I want you to stay alive and whole and here instead of this." I gestured violently at the bags, the bruises, the whole terrible tableau. "You're saying you don't want them." "I'm saying I don't want them like this." Adrian studied my face for a long moment. Then he nodded, once. "Okay. What do you want to do with them?" I looked at the small fortune piled on the couch, beautiful, useless, blood-bought. "Sell them. Donate half to the Rural Scholarship Fund. Keep the rest for emergencies." I met his eyes. Ours. Not mine. Ours. Something in his expression shifted surprise, maybe, or relief. Okay. That's it? Just okay? I only wanted to take care of you. He reached up, touched my cheek with careful fingers. If this is how you want to be taken care of, then this is what we do. I grabbed his hand, pressed it harder against my face. I don't need you to provide for me, Adrian. I need you alive. I need you choosing to be here, not out of debt or obligation, or some broken sense of duty. Just here. With me. I've been choosing you since the day you dragged me to the dining hall, he said quietly. Everything else was just logistics. I kissed him. Not soft, not tentative, hard and desperate, and 3 years overdue. He made a soft sound of surprise, then pulled me closer, hands fisting in my coat. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I rested my forehead against his. Don't leave again. I won't. And if you get the urge to do something stupidly self-destructive, I'll ask first. Promise. Promise. I kissed him again, softer this time, and let myself believe it. Chase Carter reappeared 3 days later like a natural disaster, all windswept blonde hair, expensive cologne, and weaponized enthusiasm. Vivian! He tackled me outside the hospital where Adrian and I were leaving a follow-up appointment for his ribs. Adrian's coat slipped off my shoulders as Chase spun me in a circle. Oh my God, I missed you! Why didn't you answer my texts? I sent like 40. I shoved him off. Who are you? He pulled back, mortally wounded. It's Chase. Chase Carter. We grew up together. Oh. The kid who used to collect beetles and eat library paste. He'd gone to study in Munich 7 years ago and apparently discovered both a gym and a skilled colorist. You said 4 years. Germany's complicated. He grabbed my hand. Come on, I'm taking you to dinner. I glanced back at Adrian, who stood very still, holding the fallen coat with an expression I couldn't read. This is Adrian Cole, I said quickly. I sponsored him through school. Adrian, this is Chase, childhood friend. Cool, hi. Chase barely looked at him. Vivian, I'm starving. Let's go. As we walked toward the parking lot, Chase yelped. Someone's stepping on my shoe. We turned. Adrian stood 2 paces back, expression perfectly neutral. Must be uneven pavement, I said. Chase scowled but kept walking. 10 steps later, his loafer went flying across the sidewalk, and he had to hop back to retrieve it while a group of passing college students laughed. Dinner was a beautifully orchestrated disaster. Chase had rented out an entire French bistro, Maison Loire, the one with the Michelin star and the 6-month reservation list. 50 candles, a violinist in the corner, roses on every surface. Very romantic. For 2 people. There were 2 chairs. Chase sat down with a satisfied smile. There's another table by the kitchen if your friend needs somewhere to sit. Adrian walked calmly to the empty table, picked up a chair, and carried it back. Set it down on my left with a soft thunk. Thank you for the suggestion. Chase's jaw tightened. He scooted his chair flush against my right side. Adrian mirrored him on the left. Chase leaned his head on my shoulder. Vivian, what sounds good? They have this amazing duck confit. Adrian leaned his head on my other shoulder. The violinist's bow shook so badly it sounded like he was scoring a horror film. I shoved both of them off. It's hot. Stop touching me. The meal itself was tense, punctuated by Chase's increasingly elaborate attempts to monopolize my attention and Adrian's calm, methodical sabotage. Chase, remember when we were 8 and snuck into your dad's wine cellar? Adrian accidentally knocks over Chase's water glass. Chase, God. Vivian, you were so cute back then, Adrian. She still is. Chase glares. By dessert, Chase was vibrating with frustration. So, Adrian, he said with forced cheer, what do you do? Corporate restructuring. Oh, sounds boring. It pays well. I kicked both of them under the table. The movie was Chase's idea, a Japanese horror film, supposedly a modern masterpiece of psychological terror. I'm not great with horror, I admitted. Chase puffed out his chest. Don't worry. I'll protect you. Just hide in my arms if it gets scary. 20 minutes in, a ghost crawled out of a television, and Chase screamed high, piercing, operatic, and tried to climb into my lap. Vivian. Oh my God. There's a ghost. A ghost. I patted his head. They're not real. It's CGI. Adrian glanced at us, then leaned over and rested his head on my other shoulder. I'm also frightened, he said, face completely deadpan. You're not even watching. Nonetheless, Chase pulled his head up long enough to glare at Adrian. What are you doing? Seeking comfort. She's my childhood friend is less than #0. 6 hashes greater than, and she's my... Adrian paused, then finished smoothly, current friend. Current? I've known her for 20 years. And yet I'm the one she calls when she's upset. Chase lunged at him. The movie ended early because they got us kicked out Chase for throwing the first punch, Adrian for methodically blocking every hit while maintaining perfect eye contact with me, both of them for the ensuing scuffle that knocked over a 400 speaker. We stood in the parking lot, me between them, as they glowered at each other like wet cats. He started it, Chase muttered. You threw the first punch, Adrian corrected. You provoked me. I stated a fact. Guys, I rubbed my temples. I'm going home. Alone? You two can duel at dawn or whatever. Chase grabbed my hand. Vivian, wait. Adrian took my other hand. I looked down at my self-human wishbone and laughed so hard I started crying. This is ridiculous. I'm not ridiculous, Chase protested. I'm devoted. I'm practical, Adrian said. You're both insane. I extracted my hands. Chase, go home. Adrian, take me home. We're going to pretend this never happened. Chase opened his mouth to argue. I pointed at him. Go. He deflated. Fine. But I'm texting you tomorrow. Great. I won't answer. I got in Adrian's car. He drove in silence for 3 blocks, then said quietly, he's not wrong. About what? You've known him longer. He has history with you. Context. I looked at him. Are you jealous? I'm observing facts. You're jealous. His jaw tightened. Perhaps. I reached over and laced my fingers through his. Good. He glanced at our joined hands, then back at the road, and something in his expression eased. Back at his apartment, I collapsed on the pink couch and groaned. That was exhausting. Adrian sat beside me, careful not to jostle his still healing ribs. You could have told him to leave earlier. And miss watching you two peacock at each other? Never. I turned to face him. Also, you stepped on his shoe. Twice. 3 times, actually. Adrian. He was holding your hand without permission. We're friends. Friends hold hands. Do you want to hold his hand? Adrian asked, very carefully neutral. No. Then he shouldn't assume. I studied his face, the slight tension around his eyes, the way he was holding himself too still. You really are jealous. He fits into your world better than I do. What world? The one you grew up in. Charity, galas, and ski trips, and people who summer as a verb. He looked at me. I scraped together rent by tutoring calculus to freshmen. We're not the same. Thank God for that. If you were like Chase, I'd have drowned you in the Seine back at dinner. Adrian almost smiled. I shifted closer, careful of his injuries. I don't want someone who fits into my world, Adrian. I want someone who sees me outside of it. You do that? You always have. Even when you were convinced I was a good luck talisman? Especially then. I kissed his jaw. You let me be superstitious and ridiculous, and you just stayed. No one else does that. He turned his head, caught my mouth with his. The kiss was slow, deliberate, the kind that erased the entire chaotic evening. When we broke apart, I rested my forehead against his. For the record, I murmured, Chase never bought me a couch. I'll remind him of that next time. There won't be a next time. I'm blocking his number. Don't. Adrian's hand came up to cup my cheek. He makes you laugh. I like when you laugh. You make me laugh. Not the same way. No, I agreed. Better. He kissed me again, and we stayed tangled together on the ridiculous pink couch until the city lights blurred through the windows and the world narrowed to just this, his heartbeat under my palm, steady and alive, and the quiet certainty that I'd chosen exactly right. The text appeared again 3 days later, while I was helping Adrian organize estate documents in his apartment. It flickered at the edge of my vision, translucent blue, drifting like subtitles, male-led ramping up pursuit. Childhood sweethearts angle. Villain doesn't stand a chance against narrative momentum. I blinked hard. It didn't disappear. What's wrong? Adrian looked up from a folder marked Probate Executor Notes. Nothing. Just tired. Female-led, experiencing cognitive dissonance. Normal at this stage. She hasn't accepted her role yet. Stop it, I muttered. Stop what? Not you. I rubbed my eyes. I'm seeing things. Adrian set down the folder, concerned. What kind of things? How to explain? Oh, just mysterious floating commentary on my life that treats me like a character in a story? Words. Like captions. Or commentary. I gestured vaguely. It's probably stress. He was quiet for a moment. What do they say? Nonsense. Something about narrative momentum and male leads. I laughed, but it sounded hollow. I think I'm cracking up. Or, Adrian said slowly, you're noticing something real that doesn't have an explanation yet. I looked at him. You believe me? You dragged me to a restaurant and cried for 36 hours because you thought you were a fake heiress. Your instincts aren't always rational, but they're usually accurate. He pulled me down to sit beside him. Tell me what it says. So I did. All of it from the first appearance when he'd shown me the bruises, to the commentary about him being a villain, to the predictions about Chase being the destined male lead. Adrian listened without interrupting, expression growing more thoughtful. A story? He said finally. Apparently. And we're characters in it. According to the floating text, that I'm probably hallucinating, yes. What kind of story? I think. I tried to remember the exact wording. Romance? The text keeps talking about the female lead and male lead and how you're the villain who doesn't stand a chance. Because? Because Chase and I are childhood sweethearts. Because he fits my world. Because that's how these things are supposed to go. Adrian considered this. And what do you think? I think if this is a story, it's a badly written one, because I have zero interest in Chase beyond nostalgia and mild exasperation. So, the text is wrong. The text is trying to tell me what to do. The realization solidified as I said it. It's not predicting the future, it's trying to script it. Can you make it stop? I don't know. Maybe if I ignore it? Ignoring the narrative doesn't change the outcome. Tropes have momentum. She'll fall for the male lead, eventually they always do. Like hell I will, I said aloud. Adrian raised an eyebrow. It just said I'll fall for the male lead eventually because that's how it's supposed to go. I stood up, glaring at empty air. I don't care what you think is supposed to happen. I'm not a puppet. Denial. Stage 2. There are no stages. I'm a person, not a plot point. Adrian stood as well, caught my hand. Vivian. I looked at him. Whatever this is, he said quietly, text or hallucination or something else, you're right. You're not a puppet. Neither am I. He squeezed my hand. So we make our own choices. And if something wants to narrate them, let it. Doesn't change what we decide. The text flickered. Interesting. Non-standard response. Monitoring. Then it vanished. I let out a shaky breath. Did I just argue with a narrative device? Apparently. And win? Tentatively. Adrian pulled me into his arms, careful of his ribs. Though I suspect it's not done with us. He was right. Dad came home on a Thursday. I'd been preparing for 2 weeks, mentally rehearsing the conversation, packing a bag, researching studio apartments I could afford on a part-time salary. I'd even written a letter, trying to explain that I understood, that I didn't blame them, that I'd leave quietly. I never sent it. Instead, when I heard his car in the driveway, I walked downstairs with my heart in my throat and found him in the living room, hugging Max and laughing about something that had happened at the Singapore office. He saw me and lit up. Vivian, come here. I brought you something. He pulled a distinctive orange box from his carry-on Hermes, the new Kelly in sage green that I'd mentioned once in passing 3 months ago. I walked over slowly. Dad. I know, I spoil you. But you should have seen the salesperson's face when I explained it was for my daughter. Dad, I need to tell you something. The joy in his expression dimmed. What's wrong? Max looked between us, suddenly wary. I found a document. In your study. While you were gone. My voice stayed steady through sheer force of will. A paternity test. Charles went very still. It said I had to stop, breathe. It said we're not biologically related. The silence stretched. Then Dad said, very quietly, where is it? Your desk. Middle drawer, blue folder. He stood, walked to his study. Max started to follow, but Grace appeared from the kitchen and gently steered him back. Let your father handle this. We waited. 5 minutes. 10. When Charles returned, he was holding the report and laughing. That bastard. I blinked. What? Warren. My secretary. He shook his head, half amazed, half furious. This is fake. He photoshopped it. The world tilted. What? We had a fight 3 weeks ago, major disagreement about a merger. I may have implied his judgment was compromised. He may have implied I was a tyrant who'd die alone and unloved. Charles sat down heavily. Apparently, his revenge was mocking up fake paternity tests to make me panic. But it looked real. The letterhead, he's my secretary. He has access to every template, every logo. Dad pulled out his phone. I'm calling Gene Trust right now. They'll confirm they never processed this. He did. Put it on speaker. The lab confirmed no samples from Charles or Vivian Hart in their system. No test ordered, no results generated. Complete fabrication. I sat down before my legs gave out. So I'm yours? Dad crossed the room and pulled me into a hug tight enough that I felt his heartbeat, steady and sure. "You're mine. You've always been mine." His voice was thick. "You look exactly like your mother at 23. Same eyes, same stubborn chin." There was never any doubt. But the test doesn't matter. Even if it were real, even if you weren't biologically mine, you'd still be my daughter. He pulled back to look at me. "You think biology is what makes a family?" I don't know. It's not. It's showing up. It's staying. It's choosing each other every single day. He cupped my face. "I chose you the day you were born. I've chosen you every day since." A fake test doesn't change that. Something in my chest cracked open all the fear I'd been carrying, the certainty of abandonment, the weight of unworthiness. I started crying. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought you'd be relieved. That you'd want the real daughter instead, someone who wasn't so, stop." Grace was there suddenly, wrapping around both of us. "Stop apologizing for existing, sweetheart. You're not too much. You've never been too much. I've been awful. To Max, to both of you. I've been selfish and demanding, and you've been loved," Grace said firmly. "And sometimes love makes people feel safe enough to be difficult. That's not a character flaw. That's trust." Max appeared in the doorway, looking uncertain. "I helped her be awful," he offered. "I could have said no. I just didn't. Because you're a good brother, I managed through tears. Because you're terrifying when you're angry." I laughed, wet, choked, but genuine. "I'll try to be less terrifying." "Don't." Max came closer, awkward but earnest. "You're annoying, but you're my annoying sister. I don't want the sanitized version. Even though I made you carry my shopping bags. Even though." He paused. "Though maybe we could negotiate some kind of payment structure going forward." "Deal." We stood there, the four of us, tangled together in the living room, while the fake test report lay discarded on the coffee table. I'd spent 2 weeks preparing to lose them. Turned out they'd never been willing to let me go. That night, I went back to Adrian's apartment with the Hermes box tucked under my arm. He took one look at my face and pulled me inside. What happened? I told him everything: Warren's fabrication, Dad's call to the lab, the fact that I'd spent 2 weeks in existential crisis over a Photoshop job. Adrian listened, then started laughing quiet at first, then building until he had to sit down. "It's not funny," I protested. "It's extremely funny. You cried for 36 hours over a prank. A very convincing prank. Vivian." He pulled me down beside him. "You drove yourself into an identity crisis because you believed a piece of paper over 2 decades of lived experience." I slumped against him. "When you put it that way, I sound ridiculous. You sound human." He kissed my temple. "And for what it's worth, I'm glad it was fake." "Why?" "Because now you know. They chose you. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to." His hand found mine. "That's worth more than biology." I turned the Hermes box over in my lap. "Dad brought me this. The bag I mentioned months ago." He remembered. Of course he did. I don't deserve them. Maybe not. But they don't care. Adrian's thumb traced circles on my wrist. That's the point of family. You don't earn it. You just have it. I thought about the bags on his couch the Birkins and Chanel's bought with bruised ribs and broken pride. "We're selling those," I said abruptly. "What?" "The bags you brought back. All of them. We're liquidating everything." I sat up, energized by sudden clarity. Half goes to the Rural Scholarship Fund. A quarter goes to domestic abuse resources, shelters, legal aid, therapy programs. And the rest? Emergency fund. For both of us. For when life inevitably falls apart again. I met his eyes. Shared. Equal access. No more you providing for me or me providing for you. Just us. Together. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. You're sure? I'm sure. I don't want things bought with pain. I want things built with choice. He nodded slowly. Okay. Just okay? It's your decision. They were meant for you. They were meant to be security. This is more secure knowing we both chose this. Knowing the money goes somewhere, it actually helps. I took his hand. I don't need designer bags, Adrian. I need you. I need us to be equals in this. We're not equals, he said quietly. You have family money, connections, a safety net. I have new money, no network, and a legacy of violence. Then we build something new. Together. Something that's neither your past nor mine. I squeezed his hand. We make our own foundation. He pulled me into his lap, careful, gentle, and kissed me like I'd just solved an equation he'd been working on for years. Together, he agreed against my mouth. Partners. Partners. The text flickered one last time, non-standard resolution. Female lead rejects material comfort, chooses equity over protection. Villain accepts equal partnership. Trope. .exe has encountered an error. Interesting. Then it faded and didn't come back. The auction house took their commission, the wire transfers went through, and by April we'd donated $847,000 to rural education programs and $423,000 to domestic violence resources. The remaining $312,000 sat in a joint account, accruing interest we'd probably never touch. Adrian's company stabilized under new leadership, his leadership. He restructured the executive board, implemented an ethics oversight committee, and personally apologized to every employee his father had abused or underpaid. It took 6 months. He aged a year in the process. I went back to school for nonprofit management, discovered I actually liked operational logistics, and started consulting for the scholarship fund I'd been donating to for years. Turned out I was good at it allocating resources, identifying need, building sustainable programs. Who knew? Chase texted occasionally, still operating under the delusion that we were destined soulmates. I replied with memes and strategic vagueness until he got the hint and downgraded to friend who occasionally sends wine recommendations. Max and I reached a truce. I stopped conscripting him into service. He stopped, accidentally, erasing my saved TV recordings. We had dinner together once a week, just the two of us, and discovered we actually liked each other when power dynamics weren't involved. Grace taught me to cook actual cooking, not assembling takeout on fancy plates. I was terrible at it, but she was patient, and eventually I managed to produce edible pasta. Charles taught me chess. I won twice, which he claimed was beginner's luck and I knew was him letting me win. Didn't matter. We both enjoyed the fiction. And Adrian stayed. We were curled on the pink couch one evening in late September. His apartment had become our apartment somewhere around June, though neither of us could pinpoint the exact moment when he said, "I need to tell you something." I looked up from my laptop. Ominous opening. Should I be worried? No. Maybe. I don't know. He set down his phone. My father's estate is fully settled. The company's stable. The probate is closed. That's good, right? It means I don't have a reason to stay here anymore. My stomach dropped. Oh. The company headquarters is in New York. The board expects me to relocate. When? January, ideally. But I can negotiate for later if I'll come with you. He blinked. What? I'll come with you. To New York. I closed the laptop. My program has a transfer option. The scholarship fund has an East Coast branch, is less than #0. 6# is greater than. It's logistically feasible. Vivian, you don't have to. I'm not doing it because I have to. I'm doing it because I want to. I shifted to face him fully. You stayed here for 6 months while I figured out my family situation. Now it's my turn. We move together or we don't move at all. Your family will visit. It's a 2-hour flight. I took his hands. You're not getting rid of me, Adrian. We're partners, remember? Equal investment. He stared at me, something vulnerable and wondering in his expression. You'd really leave? I'd really stay with you. Wherever that is. He kissed me deep, grateful, tinged with relief. New York, he murmured against my mouth. New York, I agreed. Together. Always. We told my family at Sunday dinner. Max dropped his fork. You're leaving? Not forever. And you can visit whenever you want. But who's going to? He stopped, flushed. I mean, it'll be weird without you. You mean you'll miss having someone to blame things on? That too. Grace reached across the table and squeezed my hand. As long as you're happy? I am. Then we're happy. She looked at Adrian. Take care of her. She doesn't need taking care of, Adrian said. But I'll stay anyway. Charles raised his wine glass. To new chapters. We toasted. Under the table, Adrian's hand found mine and held on. Epilogue. January. The New York apartment was smaller than Adrian's place had been high-rise. 2 bedrooms, absurd rent, but it had floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Central Park, and when the light hit right, the whole space glowed gold. I loved it immediately. We moved in on a Tuesday. Spent Wednesday unpacking. Thursday, I started my new position with the East Coast Scholarship Branch. Friday, Adrian had his first board meeting as permanent CEO. Saturday, we christened the new couch Deep Blue this time, a compromise between his minimalism and my maximalism. Sunday, we slept until noon, ordered Thai food, and watched bad movies in our pajamas. It felt like home. Do you ever regret it? I asked that night, tangled together under a throw blanket. Going back to your father. Getting hurt for bags we ended up selling. Adrian was quiet for a moment. No. Liar. I regret that it scared you, he amended. But I don't regret the choice. It gave us options. Agency. That mattered. Even though we gave it all away? Especially because we gave it away together. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. You taught me that. That the value isn't in having things, it's in choosing what to do with them. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I just pay attention. I kissed him, slow and thorough. I love you. He smiled against my mouth, rare, genuine. The smile I'd worked 3 years to earn. I love you too. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, the apartment was warm and lived in hours. No floating text appeared to comment. No narrative tried to redirect us. Just 2 people, choosing each other, building something new from the wreckage of what came before. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real. And